What is up, everybody? Back with another video. Figured I would continue to document the changes that this drum kit goes through because it's evolved and I think it's pretty cool. So I figured I would share it with people who are like-minded and like drum stuff. Probably won't ever see me play. It's not what this is about. Just a gearhead. Love to talk about gear, and that's what I'm going to do. First off, I went back to a split top throne. In my last video, I had a Tama, which was a round top, and I liked it for about a week. It was very comfortable at first, but after a while, it started to hurt my lower back, and so I had a red A-head tractor style seat before that, and so I went back to it, but I went with black this time, because black goes with everything. And then I upgraded the butt kicker from a mini concert to the full size, and I amplified it instead of the 90 watt amplifier, which wouldn't even make the other one turn on. I went with a Europower EP4000, delivering 1250 watts RMS via one channel, 2 ohms. That is fed by the Behringer mixer that I had before. And what else? Yep, pretty much a lot of things have changed, almost everything. Pedals. I know in my last video I had some black and purple custom shop tricks that I was really happy with, but in the end I just could not get along with the compression spring. I had 3 different spring kits for it, and despite all my adjustments, it just wasn't for me. I like a really light feel. I like the feel of Alesis pedals, or at least I would assume I do, because everybody says that they're really a light feeling pedal. But I also hear they don't have a lot of power. So I wasn't really into trying them, especially when I heard about how they don't always tend to hold up as well as other pedals. But this wasn't the first pedal I tried. I tried some Demon Drives by Pearl, and while I loved the feel of those things, they were very light feeling, but they were also clunky at times, and not all of the joints were completely solid. There was play within some of the bearing housings, and even though that the rear heel plate had areas to tighten up to make that less noticeable, it was still bad enough to where it affected my playing. And so I decided to return those, and I went with these DW machined pedals because I'd always tried DWs, and one of the things that I liked the most about them was that they had a very light feel at most of the stores that I tried them at. And even when their springs were cranked, they were bouncy and springy, but they weren't very hard to use. I don't know if that's the way that they have the floating drive shaft or the floating spindle, or if it's the way that they have the spring attached to the actual beater housing. I really don't know, but I like the way they feel. I just figured I would try the machined ones because I wasn't really happy with how clunky the 9000s were. Especially if they're, because I really wanted to keep a direct drive. So I got these, and I have to say I'm very, very happy. They're very fast, they're very light tension, but they're also very, they also have a very quick return. So, and it'll go like that for a while. I really, really love how smooth they are. They're very, very fast. Trying to do that while I'm standing. I'm not really fast at doubles, but I'm the fastest on knees. And that's what I was really after. I wanted a really well-made pedal, but at the same time, I wanted something that would fit my playing style rather than me having to change my technique to get the most out of the pedal. And that's what I felt like I had to do with the tricks. Because even when you use the low-tension spring kits, it made them better, but with the really long, heavy footboards, it almost really needed those heavier springs to keep those parts moving. So away they went, and that's what I ended up with. The dual strike kicks ended up getting sold in favor of this ATV 18-inch kick. Love this kick drum, especially on the new module, and I'll show you that in a minute. But this ATV kick really, really works well. and I wanted something that was a little bit more authentic as far as the size goes. Wasn't really wanting to get a 22-inch. Didn't want to do a 20-inch just because I don't feel like they're as popular as an 18. It seems like most people either have a 22 or an 18, so there's a lot more heads that I can find for an 18, but it doesn't take up nearly as much space, and I still think it would be cool to rock two of them at some point, and I know I wouldn't have room for two 22s. So I ended up with it. Plus, not many people know this, but if you buy this from Drum Tech in Germany, I don't know how, but you can get it for $600 shipped to your house from Germany. I paid $38 shipping for it, and then I paid $570, I think, for the actual drum. So all I know is in total, it was here in my house in 2 days from Germany, and I paid $600 even. Most everywhere else, they want $800 for it. So to get $200 off instantly and still get it just as fast as I would from Musician's Friend, I'm in. And so far, I love it. I love the triggering system in it. I love that it's actually got a huge hollow space in the front. So I took off the batter head and I threw in some ankle weights in there so that this thing, I mean, when you hit this drum, sorry, don't even have it in the camera. It doesn't move at all. It is solid. It's like it's bolted to the ground. And since this kit never moves, it's actually perfect. Feels really good. I can't say enough good things about it. I love the way it looks too. In fact, pretty soon I would like to replace these toms and do something similar to those ATVs. I'm thinking maybe some Jobecki Prestige toms, and I'm going to replace the snare. Ended up going with some Yamaha cymbals. I got 3 PCY 155s for the crashes, and then I usually assign Chinas and splashes to the smaller ones. Those are the PCY 135s. Note for anybody who wants to buy Yamaha cymbals. In 2018, the Yamaha PCY series has changed. These are like a dark charcoal gray. Note that they are they are lighter than this darker Roland. Not by a whole lot, but it is noticeable. The new ones are jet black. Probably even a little bit darker than this older Roland. The rubber feels identical to the Alesis strike rubber. Didn't really trigger any different. Played the same exact way. Didn't notice any difference in volume, feel, or anything. Just the look, and then the actual tactile feel of when you put your fingers on it. Felt in... Just reminded me exactly of this Alesis strike rubber. But I had already had like 3 gray ones, so I got rid of the black one, and so that's why you only see the gray ones. Just a note to anybody who's going to buy those, because if you don't get them all from one source, you're going to end up with mismatched colors, possibly. All right, what else has changed? Oh yeah, got one of these cow patties. Love this little thing. I was a little worried because it's like almost like a rubber tape that's about an 1/8 inch thick on a foam block, almost like the foam that you make certain like the noodles that pool inflatables are made out of. Those noodle things, that foam, but it's black. I was a little worried about it, but so far it's been holding up well, triggers well. I really, really like that thing for $60. The big deal, Pearl Mimic. Yep, I ended up with a Mimic, and I could not be happier with it. For me, the Mimic name it's just spot on, because the thing that it's able to do is once you learn the module, once you learn how to use the EQ, once you learn how to use the mics and dial those in, you can pretty much mimic any sound you have in your head as long as you know how to get there. And I've had some help from one particular Mimic user who's really knowledgeable on it, has been helping me a lot. And he's been walking me through with how to do things, and I've been watching YouTube videos of how to do studio things with drums. And that's really what I've been told and have come to realize about this module, is it really is a drum studio in a box. I'm hesitant to say it's a VST because I've used VSTs before and they don't work the same way. I like this even better. It really, really just fits me in the way I think and how I go about doing things, and I just couldn't be happier. The only way I could be happier is it's rumored and got it on good authority that this will eventually have the ability to import multi-layered samples via an editor similar to the Strike or in that vein, but it's not here yet. And so that's probably the only thing that they could do to make this just the absolute perfect module for me. But as far as the sounds go, the triggering response, everything, it's superior to the Strike in every single way. Even with the raw sounds, I've had 4 different Strike modules because it's been replaced 3 times. And when they were replaced, I got to experience even variations amongst those different modules. 2 of the modules were very early versions. Then 2 of the other ones that I had tried were later models. The later models and the early models, to me, sound significantly different. But I'm not going to go into that. I might go into that in a different video, but I don't have those modules in front of me to actually prove that there is a difference, so I may or may not do that. But the things that I did like over the Strike module is that the Pearl triggering response, to me, is just much more realistic. Now, I didn't come from acoustic drums, but I have played some kits, and to me, like I said, the triggering response of this is more natural, especially in the hi-hat. I used the same hi-hat with the Strike, and with the Mimic, much more realistic. With the Strike, you had 5 distinct levels on some hi-hats. You had the ability for 5 distinct levels of, like, say, your open, semi-open sounds, and then your closed sounds. Some of them were sampled where you would have 3 variations of semi-open tones, and then you would have an open and a closed sound. And when you used the pedal to control the hi-hat, you could hear those distinct stages changing. With the Mimic, it's very, very smooth. And like I said, it feels natural because there is no distinct cutoff. It's almost like if you were playing the hi-hat and as you were lowering the pedal, you could hear it going from open to the semi-open to another semi-open, then a third, then closed. And then other ones, they weren't sampled as deeply or they didn't have as many semi-open sounds, so it would go from just open, one semi-open sound, and then closed. With this, it's very smooth. I can't tell any distinct levels. It's almost like it's sampled so deeply that I wouldn't be able to hear the changes even if they are taking place because they blend so seamlessly. Now, the other thing that I really like, which some people have actually come to dislike about the Mimic, is the amount of microphones that it has. Now, I don't always tweak all of them, but I appreciate that they're there because with those microphones, moving certain things change where the position of the microphone is, how close it is, and you can get more smack out of the head. You can get more of the actual oomph of the kick just by changing the positions of those mics. Then you can take it one step further and use the onboard EQs, which there are numerous ones, to dial just the instruments or the kits as a whole, or you even have a dedicated headphone EQ so that if you have headphones like mine that might not have the optimal high-end response you're looking for, but have amazing low-end and good mids, but you just want a little bit more clarity in the top end, you have the ability to edit that as a master EQ for your headphones so that that's always a constant no matter what kit you have. And then you can even dial in further with the individual instrument EQs and then the overall EQ. For me, I love having those options. And if you really want a raw sound and you don't want to use any ambience or have that that room effect or that what is it? You got the room mic. Let me look. I don't always remember the terms. Let's go in here and look. Yeah, so you'll have your room mic and your overhead mics. And then you have additional reverb on top of that. And with the Strike, you had reverb. And you had certain reverbs that mimicked a close mic, mimicked a hall or a room via different reverbs. But let me tell you, they did not sound good. Via an amp or a PA, they came off okay. But in most cases, the reverbs on the Strike sound digital. They sound very, very fake. For me, it ruined a lot of the sounds. And it kind of sucked because you wanted to have a little bit of ambience. You wanted to have a little bit of, the sense of space. But it colored it so bad, and it sounded so like it had digital artifacts. I mean, it was so hard for me to describe. It was horrible. I could not put up with it. So in most cases, I didn't even use the onboard sounds because I didn't like them without the reverb, and I hated them with it. So I was mostly using that module to import my own sample libraries. And then I was able to import samples that already had pre-processing done to them, and they were album ready, so I could just load them right into the module and then get whatever sound I wanted. But it was still a snapshot of that sound. I couldn't edit it like I could on the Mimic. But like I said, it's not just that. The sounds, the triggering response, how realistic it is. There were certain techniques that I was trying to learn with the Strike that I just felt like I wasn't getting. And it wasn't really because I wasn't getting it. It was because the technical limitations of that module and the technical limitations of the triggering response didn't allow for certain techniques to come off proper. Buzz rolls being one of the biggest things. With the Mimic, buzz rolls come off effortlessly. Now, that to me just shows that the Mimic module is sampled more deeply, more round robins, and more velocity layers. And so when you play them, it's going to be more seamless. Other people have described it as being very smooth, and it is, because the playing experience is not jittery at all. With the Strike, if I played certain snares, certain toms, if you tried doing a roll on them, in many cases you could count the round robins. A lot of times when playing at full velocity, you might have 5 samples that would play in sequence one after the other if you were playing at full velocity and doing a roll. So you could count that, and it didn't come off as authentic. With the Mimic, there's never been an instance where I've played an instrument and go, I could tell I counted this many cycles before it rolled over, and this is how many samples it's got for this particular instrument when playing at full volume. I don't get any of that. It's very, very, very realistic for me. Probably not as realistic as a real acoustic kit, but I never played acoustic but for someone like me who is trying to get as close as he can and doesn't have that frame of reference, really, really authentic. Trying to think. Oh yeah, and another thing, cymbal swells. Cymbal swells with this module are much, much easier to pull off. Now, it does use some modeling software to achieve that because, let's face it, any time that you are using a module that uses samples, you're going to be at the mercy of how those samples were recorded, and they're not going to respond the same way as an acoustic cymbal. So they used modeling software to help that. It'll know when you're trying to do a swell, and it does make it easier. So people like me, whose technique sucks, can sound awesome, or close to awesome, in their own mind. Trying to think of what else was really, really an upgrade for me. Oh yeah, right down to the choking of the cymbals. Now, I can't wait for the day when you have triggers or you have switches or some type of a sensor on the edge of your cymbal that will let the module know how hard you're choking the cymbal. But we're not there yet. So the next best thing is what the Mimic does, at least for a module that plays samples. With the Strike, you choke your cymbal, boom, it's done. It cuts off instantly. With this, you choke one of these cymbals with the Mimic module, and you hear the cymbal ring out after the fact, just as you would if you were muting a cymbal with your hand in real life. That, for me, was a huge thing, because I don't really record, and, at best, I will play along with other songs, but a lot of times, I'm just sitting here messing around. I'm getting up there in my age, and this is kind of like my midlife crisis playing out before my eyes. Something to do, something to have fun with, something to consume some of my time, because I do have a lot of it due to certain circumstances. This has been basically, in a way, a therapeutic tool for me. And for me, I'm very, very, like I said, picky about sound. I'm picky about how real something is. And my first kit I had was a Nitro. And that almost made me give up on electronic drums. And when I got the Strike, I was like, man, this is good. I like this. I like the natural drum sounds, but I had to admit to myself that I liked the triggering response of Roland. Now, I think a lot of people tend to talk about triggering response with Roland, and they say that they like the way the Roland triggers. And a lot of times people associate that with the actual pads. And yeah, there are times, like with the Strike cymbals, in my opinion, where there are actual physical limitations of the hardware that prevent you from being able to make a authentic sound. Like with the Strike cymbals, there's this huge shelf right here. And so when you hit the edge of the cymbal, you have to hit it hard so you dig in deep enough to actually activate that switch. Which anybody who has those cymbals that are very hard to trigger, I would recommend doing the same modification that they do for the belt of the Roland Roland Ride, which is to add layers to the actual switch so that the rubber inset that goes over the switch, when you hit it, it will trigger it easier, because that shelf really gets in the way from you being able to enjoy those cymbals the way they should have been. There are some times where your actual hardware limits you, but I think a lot of the triggering response is more in the module itself. And it's not, I think with a module like this that uses real samples that are multi-layered, you have to have a lot of samples and a lot of velocity layers for that stuff to run smoothly. And maybe there's things in the computing process. There might be modeling in this module. I really don't know. Could just be just how deeply it's sampled. But as far as the authenticity, the Mimic really, really kills it. I just really, really enjoy it. I love the touch screen. Hate the fingerprints. But I really find the module to be very, very intuitive. Maybe it's because of the 1.8 update, but for me, this is much easier to use than, say, a module that has just one little LCD screen and you have to go through a million different menus and press buttons. And for me, this is much more easier for me to do, because for me, it operates a lot like an app, a complicated app, but an app nonetheless. Crosstalk on this is so much easier to do. You just go into here with the trigger settings, hit capture crosstalk, select your pad, and then you have this capture head and bow. You just press that button, hit your kick 5 times, and then press save and exit, and you're good. And not only that, but it works. It takes a lot of guesswork out of doing your triggers. Everybody talks about how hard this module is to use, but they never really touch on the points that are actually super, super easy. And that is one of the things that really, everybody, I think, has the misconception over that little thing right there. Everybody reads Pro, and they think, oh man, it's a Pro module. It should be so easy to use. It should be plug and play. I'm going to turn that thing on. I'm going to sound like a god. Not really. Pro in the name usually means you need a pro level of understanding of how a module works to actually utilize its full functions and to get the most out of it. I was not there when I first started with this thing. In fact, it was a little bit discouraging. But you gotta have a little bit of patience, and you gotta look at what's in there, look at what it does, and then look up some videos on how to actually utilize that. And above all of the things, read the manual. That's something I have a hard time doing. I will admit. I don't like reading manuals, but they are useful when I finally do get around to it. But once you actually get around the curve and you actually start to understand even the more complicated things that this module does, like when you go into Mixer, let's get out of here, exit, Mixer, and you want to do, say, mod, kicks. One of the things that I started to do was I really messed with the sustain and release, because you can get a more muted sound, something that's more like a Roland. You know, one of the things that people don't like about the Mimic is things ring out a lot. Well, right here, you adjust your sustain and your release, and you got that much more tighter sound that, you know, your kick is dead. Your toms, you can make them dead, make them sound like you got no resonant heads on the bottom. And it really works well. No, you don't have a little button that says mute. And you don't have these little buttons or menus that can artificially change the texture of the walls. But other companies can do that because it's a modeling technique. It's not real. And that was the thing that I needed. I needed real sounds. Now, I don't think this has the full functionality of a VST, but I don't think they're nearly done with this module yet. I think there's still plenty of room for improvement. I think that the module is powerful enough to accept a lot of upgrades over time. And we will see where it goes. But right as it is, I could never go back. The realism, the triggering, and just the fact of, have I ever had a problem with this? Yeah. There was one time where I had gone in to edit a kit, and I went to edit the kick drum, and I edited it. I put a different kick drum on it, but I never actually saved it. And I kept on changing kits and doing different things without actually ever saving that changed instrument. At some point, I lost layer 2, and I didn't know where it went. I couldn't find it. Rebooted the module, came back, never did that again, and it never came back. But it seems like any glitch like that is software related, and it wasn't the actual unit itself. Aside from that, that's the only problem I've ever had. With the Strike module, it was like the ghost in the machine. It was like every day I woke up and I was like, what am I going to fix today? And that was what was, you know, it's kind of weird, you know, because I actually bought the Strike, believe it or not, because of the problems. I know people think that sounds crazy, but I bought that kit because I heard so much stuff wrong with it. I love fixing things. I love getting in there and tweaking and changing things and modifying. And so as far as a modification standpoint, it was a dream because there were things in there that I could do something about. You know, like I did, I think, the first carbon fiber plate swap on snares. And I was, you know, teaching people how to do that. And that was cool. But at some point, you just want to play. And I know there's a lot of guys who never had a problem with it, but I had tons of problems. I had my kick replaced. I had my snare replaced 3 times. I had my module replaced 3 times. I had my hi-hat replaced. My ride was replaced. One of my crash cymbals was replaced. One of my whatever the hell you would call that. I'm having a total brain fart, but that's great. Anyway, maybe I'm having a stroke. Whatever the hell this thing is with the top that clamped on your boom, I had 2 of those strip out. First time, they sent me a new pipe. Actually, they wanted to send me just this piece, but it's pinned in. So I'd have to drill it out anyway. So I just, you know, the second time it happened, I just bought another one of these, bolted it on, and it's been better ever since. But even this rack, this Alesis Strike rack, I've broken the clamps. I've broken the tom clamps. It's just not, in my opinion, very robust. Great top of the line mid-level kit. That's what I would refer to it as. If you really want a big kit that gets you really, really close but isn't all the way there, Alesis Strike and Strike Pro is awesome. Especially for people who are beginners, because it offers a lot of bang for the buck. But it is roll of the dice, I'm not going to lie. And to any of you guys that have had just really, really good luck, awesome. Proud of you. Happy for you. It just didn't work out for me. And am I picky? Yeah. But at the same time, I just think things should work properly. You know, a lot of people don't like the fact that I haven't been playing drums that long, but I feel, you know, but they see me as putting myself out there as an authority on how to do certain things. But they forget, I'm a 25-year musician. I didn't just wake up, you know, yesterday and decide, okay, I'm going to get into music. I've been like this my whole life. And when I get into something, I go deep and I put a lot of time in because I have the ability to. So I'm not saying I'm a genius. I'm not saying that I excel at things faster than other people, but I have the ability to put a lot of time in. And I'll put it to you this way. A rocket scientist doesn't need to get on a space shuttle to know how to get a guy to the moon. He might not actually be able to physically fly the thing himself, but he can tell you how to do it. That's how I would equate it to. I'm not a good drummer. If anybody were to actually come over and listen to me play, there would be a lot of things to critique, especially my timing. I'm absolutely horrible at following a metronome, but I'm more of like the producer mindset. And just like you don't need to be able to play an instrument to tell somebody else how to play something, you don't actually need to be a film director to tell someone if they made a bad film. That's just the way I see things. A lot of people feel like, well, dude, you haven't been playing drums for very long, so you can't know about any of this stuff. But there's so many times where it just ends up being to where, you know, the guys who play a lot of drums and really put in the time and effort into playing don't really get into the gear. They don't get into the technical side. That's what I do. I get into the technical side. I learn how things work, and I try and help people out with that because I can understand that stuff a little bit better than some. Again, not because I'm smarter than anybody else, but because I got a lot of time on my hands and I can do the work. But yeah, so far, the drum kit, I'm really, really happy with. Especially the module. Toms are going to go, snare is going to go. By the way, I know it really sounds like I'm ragging on the Strike. I'm not trying to, because I do think it's awesome. I really, really like it for what it is. But, let's face it, Mimic module costs just as much as, almost as much as a Strike Pro whole kit. You know, $2,000 module, at best, the Strike module is probably not even over $800. So it's over twice as expensive as that module would be if it was sold as a standalone unit. So it's going to be better. You know, some people were going to be a denier of that, and they think that the Strike is the most amazing thing since modules ever existed. I don't think I would go that far, but I do think it's a good module. I just don't think it's the best module. Now, Mimic could be the best, just biased, but as far as sounds and the ability to tweak those sounds, I think it's better than anything else out there. As far as triggering response, I've played some Rolands and they trigger well, but I think that's the mechanics part. When you play something on one of the cymbals or the drums, what you play is what you hear coming out of the module. But I don't think it triggers well as far as the ability to reproduce what you get from having multi-velocity samples. I just don't think it does. All the modules that I hear from Roland, even the TD50 at times, to me sounds like Rambo going full bore. And that's just the limitations of modeling. You know, if Roland were to put as much data into their drum kits as you have in like a Mimic, they would have to do the same thing. They would have to do solid state drives. They would have to do things about their latency, because they have really no latency when you use them. I mean, they have, from what I understand, I think it's like 3 milliseconds. I think the Mimic is that good, but it's also, I think, a little bit more powerful in its processing. So, I don't know. I just think that Roland gets away with low latency and their extremely fast triggering response because they're not pushing as much data as other units. So, what is up next? I'm sure there's more to talk about the Mimic, and I'll probably go into more detail in this. And if there's anybody actually watching this who wants to know more about this, or my specific take on certain things, or if anybody's confused on how to do certain things, I'm not a pro, and I don't claim to know everything. But I do know some other people who would probably know, and I will definitely give them credit for the information if I can't answer the question. Let's just say, if I can't answer the question, I'll find it out for you. Because I'm a details guy. That's what I like doing. And if there's something detailed you want to know, let me know, and I'll try and figure it out for you. But what's next? If the DW remains in one piece, that will be staying. I've got one more symbol to replace. Thank you, brother. He already showed me that he got it for me for Christmas, so that's going to be awesome. Can get rid of that thing. Hi-hat stand is going to change. I'm going to go with the DW machined. Then after that, toms and snare. But definitely on Christmas, that's what's coming next. And I don't know if I should do build video or like a time-lapse video of it, but that's going to be too difficult because I got to modify rack pipes and everything. But I'm getting rid of the Alesis strike rack, or at least the clamps and the regular tom clamps and stuff, because I got a used Roland MDS 25 rack with the metal rack clamps that let you put the cables through the rack. So I'm going to finally get rid of this rack nest. So I'm going to have the cables going through the rack, and I also have some other rack clamps from Roland that I might be doing a double tier, where I have the supporting clamps on the bottom. But with the metal clamps, it might give me the stiffness that I need without actually needing to do a double rack. So we'll see. I don't know. But the rack's definitely going to change. And then I've got some Drum Tech ball clamps for the toms. Those are going to go on. And then I've got Gibraltar rack clamps that are going on. So the whole rack's going to get changed. And yeah, then it's going to be the toms and the hi-hat stand. But that's where I'm headed with it. Let me know down in the comments what's going on with your kit. What module do you use? What are you guys actually playing on? And if you see anything on my kit and you're like, oh, dude, you should try this for that. If you've heard anything of me talking about this, definitely let me know. I'd like to know your thoughts on what I should probably add to this. I would love to get ATD symbols. Just not ready to drop the coin on them, especially because I don't want to get any that are going to dent, because that'll kick my OCD into overdrive, and I'll be sitting here popping pills and slurring my speech even more than I am. So, but yeah, I figured I would make this video, go over the changes with the kit, explain why I chose the Mimic over the Strike, and things that are going to be going on in the future, and why I did what I did. But yeah, thanks a lot for watching if you've made it this far, and I'll probably be making more videos like this one, documenting more changes. And if you have any requests for me to touch on any topics, leave a suggestion down below. Thanks.